Hello and a very good morning. You're right here on News 9 Live. I'm Kartik Malhotra. You're watching Business Plus. Of course, the biggest story we've been tracking, not just today, not yesterday, not for a week, for many weeks now, is of course the news of the Ram Temple in Ayodhya. Let's look at the headlines on Ayodhya and beyond that, what we'll be tracking on Business Plus today. The government's investment of $10 billion or 83,000 crore rupees in Ayodhya is likely to pay off with footfalls of over 15 million or 5 crore tourists every year. Of course, the biggest story that we are tracking, which we'll come to on the show, is the Zee-Sony merger, which has now been called off. Sony has sent a termination letter to Zee, seeks $90 million as termination fee. JSW Group is going to invest $5 billion in electric vehicle manufacturing projects in Odisha, as per a Reuters report. And just after inaugurating the Ram Temple, Prime Minister Modi announces the launch of Pradhan Mantri Suryodaya scheme. 10 million houses or 1 crore houses to have rooftop solar panels under the new scheme. All these stories and more, but first up, of course, let's bring you all the highlights that have emerged and are likely to emerge from the temple town of Ayodhya. Yesterday, Jan 22nd, was the inauguration of the Ram Temple and the Pran Pratishtha finally over. It's time for business to take off. Estimates suggest that as many as 5 crore people from across the world are likely to travel into the temple town. What has been the math of the Ayodhya project thus far? The temple construction cost has been about 1,800 crore rupees. Add to that, the government of India, the government of Uttar Pradesh, cumulatively likely to invest as much as $10 billion at today's exchange rate of about 83 rupees to a dollar. That's likely to be an investment of 83,000 crore rupees. 83,000 crore rupees to accommodate 5 crore tourists every year. Each tourist spending even a very, very meager 2,500 rupees on that trip to Ayodhya closes the math pretty well, suggesting that the government's investment will break even well before the 10-year mark that the government has set out for the Ram Temple city of Ayodhya to be visited. Joining me today is my friend and colleague Amit Ranjan. Amit, a lot of data emerging. In fact, yesterday we saw the who's who from the world of business and the world of entertainment. Celebrities like Amitabh Bachchan, Abhishek Bachchan, South Indian star Chiranjeevi, corporate leaders including the entire clan of the Ambani family, Mukesh Ambani, brother Anil Ambani, Neeta Ambani, Isha Ambani, Anant Ambani, and the who's who was present yesterday. But I think the top story that's really emerging is land prices in Ayodhya that have gone through the roof. In fact, estimates suggest that land prices have escalated as much as 5 times between 2019 and 2024 and are likely to go up another 20 times in the next 10 years or so. What is the data that you're making sense of here?
Yeah, so like you said, land prices have gone through the roof. There are quite a few high net worth individuals who are investing in land in Ayodhya. Apart from all the hospitality majors who are coming in, Taj is coming in, lesser known individuals like Kamath Hotels is coming in, yeah. Marriott is following. It's a matter of time before ITC, Radisson is following. So land prices are going through the roof. The biggest gainers are the farmers who have basically cashed in. It is going to be an infra-driven growth. Right now, you mentioned the amount of tourists that are expected. Right now, all Ayodhya has is 17 hotels and 590 rooms.
Okay.
40 new hotels are under construction. 73 new hotels are in the pipeline. So that is the quantum of growth that this city is expecting. Apart from that, the clustering effect, once high net worth individuals start coming into this, aspirational entrepreneurs will follow, and that will be a whole new economy. Not just tourism. Tourism is still the biggest draw, yeah. As far as religious tourism is still the biggest draw as far as tourism in India goes. And this government plans to make Ayodhya the hub. 15,700 crores rupees worth of projects have been inaugurated by PM Modi. The new airport is going to be $170 million worth in 2 years. It is going to, it is expected to handle as many as 10 lakh tourists per day.
10 lakh tourists a day.
I'll just correct that figure exactly what it is.
Because estimates right now suggest that you will see tourism of, and the range is actually from about 1 crore per year to about 5 crore per year. Yeah. So I think on an average, even if you look at a pessimistic side of 1 crore tourists, you're looking at about 30,000 flocking in every day. Yeah. Take it 5 times over, about 1.5 lakh tourists a day seems like a decent figure, given the fact that IRCTC is upping its capacity to draw in about 60,000 tourists every day, and the balance through roadways or airways, as the case may be.
Yeah. The capacity of this airport, the $175 million worth,
yeah.
in 2 years, it will have the capacity to handle
about 1 million passengers
a day.
Wow. So that is obviously a big number. I was fascinated, Amit. I don't know if you had a chance to look at the front page of the Times of India today. The house of Abhinandan Lodha launching real estate projects in Ayodhya. Starting price of 1.72 crore rupees per house. And guess who's the brand ambassador? None other than Mr. Amitabh Bachchan, who himself has invested in Ayodhya. So real estate is obviously one part of the story. I think the other part of the story is the entire connectivity which is coming into the town. So the Gorakhpur-Faizabad highway is obviously now fully built, ready, and that is going to see traffic coming in from the eastern side of the country into Ayodhya. And then, of course, you've got Lucknow, which again is an airport and the capital of Uttar Pradesh. But what is really fascinating right now is that over the last 5 years, and leave the last 30 years since this whole controversy came into public imagination about the Ram Janmabhoomi versus the Babri Masjid, which had to be, which was in fact brought down in the year 1992. But the needle has not really moved on the per capita income in Ayodhya. In fact, if you look at the data emerging, it shows that the per capita income in Ayodhya is just about 24,000 compared to Uttar Pradesh's average of about 36,000 and the national average of about 90,000. Now, with tourism, with religious tourism flourishing, there are obviously going to be some improvements. But do you think, in your estimation, that is something which is likely to move the needle anytime in the next 1 year, 2 years or so, until all the 3 phases of the temple are fully constructed?
2 years, yes, because that is the time they have given for the construction of at least the airport and the renovated railway facility.
Right.
Now, with like I mentioned, once with industry coming in, and you look at the location of Ayodhya, it could be a cluster of religious tourism. You have Varanasi not far away.
Right.
So it could be, and then there is Sarnath next to that.
Yes.
So it could be a cluster not just of religious tourism, but once with high net worth individuals coming in and aspirational entrepreneurs coming in, the snowballing effect can take you anywhere.
Absolutely.
The UP government is expecting an additional tax revenue of 25,000 crores with the coming of the religious tourism in Ayodhya.
25,000 crore rupees additional revenue coming in by way of taxes. That, of course, is fascinating. But, you know, just to draw some comparison here in numbers, and I'm talking about religious tourism across the world. Now, what are the most iconic religious tourism centers in the world? You've got the Mecca, you've got the Vatican City, and now Ayodhya is touted to be the sort of Vatican City alike for Hindu tourists from across the world. And these numbers are staggering. The Vatican City, which is the hub for Christianity-based tourism, attracts just about 9 million tourists in a year from across the world. Mecca attracts just about 20 million, and this is data which has come from Fitch just yesterday. Ayodhya is likely to be almost double of both of these combined. Both of these combined is about 29 million. On a pessimistic scale, Ayodhya is likely to expect about 50 million tourists every year. Obviously, there is one aspect of enough hotels being built. There is one aspect of enough avenues to get into the city, whether it is roadways, railways or airlines. But I think the foremost concern right now that emerges is management of these tourists. the safety, the security, the comfort, the ease of visiting the Ramlala, the ease of navigating in the rest of the city, and enough and more attractions coming up. We haven't seen too many announcements when it comes to other tourist attractions outside of the Ram temple. Anything you've picked up on what the government's plans are?
There is, of course, the plan that is in the news these days, that even the new masjid that's going to be built is going to be a very fascinating structure and magnificent structure. So that is going to add to the whole tourism. And like I said, once the clustering effect, once that many tourists are coming, you need to have infrastructure, not just hospitality, but even healthcare has to be developed.
Right.
FMCGs will flow in big numbers.
Right.
And like the snowballing effect, how far it goes, it's just a matter of time for all of us to see.
Absolutely. But, while we're talking data, while we're talking the economy of Ayodhya, and while we're talking broadly, in terms of the per capita income, I think it's important also to pick up some of these statistics that you mentioned about healthcare, education, etc., and pull up those numbers, because that is another fascinating story, because Ayodhya already seems to be pretty much at par with the state capital Lucknow when it comes to the number of educational institutions and the number of hospitals. In fact, in many counts, surpassing Noida, Gautam Budh Nagar, which is incidentally a part of the National Capital Region. Look at those numbers there. If you were to compare, let's say, banks, colleges, universities, hospitals, in fact, Ayodhya already has more number of hospitals than Lucknow. I mean, this seems to be government hospitals. This is government data, not private hospitals. So you have government infrastructure already in place. You've got 4 municipalities versus 1 in Lucknow. You've got 2 postal facilities versus 1 in Lucknow. You've got 2 electricity grids versus 1 in Lucknow. But you've got, almost the same number of colleges, a smaller number of colleges and universities. So the government infrastructure is there. Do you think private capital is now likely to flow into any of these essential services to make Ayodhya as livable a city as, let's say, a Lucknow or a Noida? Or is the focus for corporate India or global corporate houses likely to only be temple tourism and nothing else?
It's going to be demand pull driven. If we have an airport, if we are looking at an airport that is world class, then the tourists who are coming in will expect everything else to be of that standard.
Okay.
So whether it is universities, hospitals, right now they're only government hospitals, but the private ones are, it's just a matter of time that they will follow, and they will have to be world class if they have to attract that kind of aspirational, not just investors, and tourists, but even entrepreneurs who are going to follow the high net worth individuals who are expected to come into this town.
All right. Well, a lot of people continue to be bullish. A lot of businesses continue to be bullish on the temple town of Ayodhya. Government's investment of $10 billion likely to pay off much sooner than all of that corpus is exhausted over the next 10 years. But of course, that is a story we'll have to wait and watch for. Remember, we have been talking about Ayodhya stocks also, and word coming in from a lot of market analysts suggesting that these headline events come and go, and fundamentals need to be followed when investment for the long-term, long horizon is concerned. So is this also going to be a fleeting event where announcements are made, where promises are made, but not too many takers? Or is this really going to change the fate of the city of Ayodhya, the fate of Uttar Pradesh and tourism in India, which is right now just a meager 7% of the GDP? That, of course, is a story we will have to follow over years. But time for a very short break right now. Coming up on the other side, the Zee-Sony collapse. What does it mean for Sony, and what does it mean for Zee Entertainment? That and more after a short break.
Currently, the industry is facing a lot of challenges as far as demand is concerned. Basically, the US markets has slowed down because of high inflation.
So obviously, diamonds being a dream product, something which doesn't have a utility value or is seen as a luxury. So that obviously goes off your shopping list. That's the first item that will go off your shopping list, especially in recessionary trends.
That lab-grown diamonds are not mined, and they do away with the entire mining. So they save up on all the environmental damage that is associated with mining, and of course, the mining costs, which is why they're even more affordable.
People that is impacted by all these recessions are the artisans, are the people who work in this industry, right? But I think lab-grown diamond has allowed them to actually use their skills in the same product.
This and more streaming on world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus. Download now.
वर्ष 2070 तक भारत नेट जीरो का लक्ष्य हासिल करेगा।
There is certainly a wall of capital coming into the clean tech, climate tech space, not just in India but across the world.
This and more streaming on world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus. Download now.
Welcome back here with Business Plus. After nearly 2 years of negotiating, Sony Group on Monday has finally called off its $10 billion merger with Zee Entertainment. This development comes after a crucial meeting was held on Friday, following which a final decision on the merger deal was expected. Sony said in the statement it had engaged in good faith discussions to extend the end date to complete the deal, but the companies were unable to agree upon an extension beyond their Jan 21st deadline. This, of course, was already an extended 1-month deadline. But according to a statement issued by Zee Entertainment, Sony is also pursuing a termination fee of $90 million from Zee Entertainment, citing alleged breaches by the company. Although it must be noted that Sony did not specify on Monday what conditions remained unfulfilled. Zee, however, refuted all claims made by Sony, asserting that it has not breached the terms of the merger agreement. The company is actively evaluating available options to address the situation, including taking appropriate legal action. In a response to Sony calling off the mega merger, Zee CEO Puneet Goenka, who was in Ayodhya yesterday, said on X that it seems to be a sign from the Lord, adding he would move forward, strengthening his company for the stakeholders. Now, this $10 billion merger discussion was initiated in 2021 and was originally slated for completion by December 2023. And then there was a 1-month extension. However, the deal hit several roadblocks right from inception, including regulatory issues, deadline extensions, among others. The root cause of the termination, however, lies in an extended disagreement between the two companies, primarily centered around the leadership question on who would be the CEO of the merged entity. Zee had proposed CEO Puneet Goenka take the helm, but Sony did not really concur and was pushing NP Singh, the Sony India head, to be the leader at the merged entity. Last year, the Security and Exchange Board of India, SEBI, had also barred Puneet Goenka from holding management positions in listed companies, accusing him of diverting Zee's funds to the group's other listed entity. While Goenka denied the allegations, SAT later in October said that he could go ahead and take management positions but must comply with the investigations of the regulator. Zee then sought a deadline extension, a request to which Sony agreed. However, the latest development to scrap the agreed upon merger comes after this 30-day grace period has also lapsed. Now, what next for Zee? What next for Sony is the big question on everybody's mind. Joining me to make some sense of it right now, given the news developing and the speculation all around, is Karan Taurani, Senior Vice President, Elara Capital. Good morning, Karan. Thank you so much for being with us this morning on Business Plus. Question number one, what next for Zee Entertainment?
Hi, good morning. I think in terms of what next, it's very uncertain in terms of what exactly is going to pan out. They might try and find for a new strategic or a financial partner. But if you look at the M&E industry as such, we don't foresee that there is anybody left now. RIL is already in talks with Disney. There's no large other MNC broadcaster or OTT platform who would want to have an interest on Zee's business right now, because still 90% of the revenues are from linear TV side. So I think it's going to be a troubled time for them in terms of their growth, because with Sony, what we were trying to build in is that they were supposed to grow at a very faster pace. They were supposed to take the full advantage of the synergies in the business. And this could have also led to them gaining potential market share in the linear TV side, which is already struggling for growth. So I think it's going to be troubled times for the financial impact of the company.
Okay, so help me make sense of this, Karan. Who tends to lose more on account of this merger not going through? Sony, which has just a meager 6% market share of the Indian M&E industry. Zee, on the other hand, already commands about 25% market share. Zee does not have the money. Sony has the money. With this deal not going through, is it more bad news for Sony or is it worse news for Zee?
I think both parties will be at the losing end here, because even if you look at Sony, once the RIL Disney merger happens, it's going to be tough for Sony to scale up. And also, just on the numbers perspective, I think in terms of the M&E industry is not the correct number to look at it, but overall advertising number perspective, both are largely at par, Zee and Sony. And I think they will also have equally have a negative impact in terms of how they're going to scale up India operations, because we believe that for Sony as well, India is a very big focus market. It's the only market which is growing on the linear TV side as compared to other markets which are seeing a decline. And a lot of ambitious plans could have been laid out on the technology side as well, once the Zee-Sony merger could have played through.
Right.
So I think it's going to be a double whammy for both, but it's a bigger negative for Zee than for Sony, because I think Sony will continue to run business as usual. But for Zee, there is a dilemma in terms of the legal proceedings. I think, the lenders or the creditors of SL Group, those legal proceedings will continue. There's a legal proceeding from Sony as well, which will happen now, because the termination fee, which they are kind of asking for. There could also be a potential overhang in terms of Disney, because if you remember, Zee had signed a deal with Disney for buying out the TV rights of the ICC tournaments.
That's right.
We'll have to wait and watch in terms of whether that's honored or not. If that is honored, you could see substantial losses, for Zee as an entity. So I think bigger challenges for Zee, because even Z5 as a platform to see in terms of the overall OTT ecosystem, they have not scaled up as expected. Right. And I think there are going to be challenges to scale up. Plus, there are hefty losses for the digital business as well, which could come down marginally, but it's quite substantial in number. And they're making almost about 1,000 crores of EBITDA loss in the OTT business as well. So I think there are a lot of challenges, going ahead for Zee as a company.
All right. And of course, all in the realm of speculation right now, but it seems that the Adani Group has also in the past expressed interest to go ahead and pick up stake in Disney. That, of course, deal is now likely to go through between RIL and not the Adani Group along with Disney. But do you suspect right now, looking at the industry from the outside, that there is a case for the Adani Group to make some sort of a bid on Zee's entertainment business?
So I would not want to comment specifically on speculation, but let's say hypothetically, there is a case that maybe an Adani comes to bid, for Zee Entertainment as a majority, or tries to buy a controlling stake herein. But we don't foresee valuation multiples of this company going up to where it could have gone because of the deal with Sony. Because what Sony brings on the table is synergies, technological expertise, route to market. They are there in the existing business, they're an MNC company. So I think putting all these things into perspective, the valuation multiple that Zee as an entity would have got, after the merger with Sony, will not come by with any other entity for that matter. So I think, Adani Group, obviously, they are a large corporate conglomerate, and they will bring the financial support, but in terms of expertise, I think they're not there in the media business. So that's why I'm saying that you could see some respite on valuation multiples because of any strategic or financial partner. But what Sony could have brought on the table in terms of synergies and the business efficiencies and the overall outlook in terms of gaining share in the M&E industry, we don't foresee that any other player will be able to get this kind of a thing.
Right. So you mentioned Adani is not into the media business, not technically into the entertainment business, but is now in the news business with the acquisition of NDTV. But that aside, and a quick, just a one-line response if possible, Karan, we are running out of time, is that do you think if Reliance was to make a bid for Zee now, will it get the CCI's go-ahead?
So firstly, I think in that Adani thing, they have not been a part of the media business, but recently they've become a part of NDTV and the Quinton media business, which is there. But this business is GEC business, so it's completely different as compared to what they've been doing. On this Reliance bit, actually we don't foresee this kind of a thing happening. Again, it's very speculative. We believe that Reliance Disney, the talks are ongoing right now. And potentially where things are right now, they could kind of go ahead and get a deal. So if that happens, we don't foresee them, kind of coming and taking, Zee as well, because there could be, CCI and legal obstructions for that. Because Reliance Disney itself, as an entity will be very large, and they'll have a close to, a 40%, 45% kind of a market share in terms of TV advertising.
Right. All right, Karan, we leave it there for now. But of course, this is a developing story. Karan Taurani, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We'll, of course, keep bringing you updates as and when they arrive on what's happening in the mergers and acquisition space in the media industry and more. But talking about corporate India, JSW Group is set to invest $4.81 billion in electric vehicle manufacturing projects in India's coastal state of Odisha, as it takes on both domestic and international players in India's small but booming EV market. Electric models made up around 2% of India's car sales last year, with Tata Motors dominating the market. But the government is targeting a 30% share by 2023, which is the end, by 2030, I beg your pardon, which is end of this decade. According to a statement on Monday, JSW Group will invest 250 billion rupees, not dollars, in an EV battery manufacturing plant and an EV components plant in the first two phases of its plan. But moving on for now, a very important announcement that came by way of Prime Minister Narendra Modi on social media platform X yesterday, soon after the inauguration of the Ram Temple, was India's electrification, not just of automobiles, but by way of solar panels to be installed in 1 crore houses this year. To get us more on this story is my colleague Swati Garag. Hi Swati, good morning. What are these solar panels, 1 crore of them, that Prime Minister is asking the country to put on their rooftops?
Well, yesterday he did announce the scheme it is the Suryodaya, Pradhan Mantri Suryodaya scheme. But it also runs parallel to the scheme that they had installed in 2014, where the capacity of 40 gigawatt was not met by 2022. So this scheme is just an extension.
Okay.
To the scheme that was launched in 2014, where he wants to put solar panels on rooftops for 1 crore households in India, across India, and the scheme will be very connected to the
power grids, and the power grids will feed from these solar powered rooftop panels, which will feed into the grid. Now, I think, Swati, this comes again at the back of India's own sort of, measures being taken to become net carbon zero by 2070, and part of India's overall push towards renewable energy by 2030, 2032, 500 gigawatts to come up. This 1 crore such rooftop panels adding back to the grid. Overall, in the context of India's Vision 2070, how important a step does this seem to be?
This does seem to be an important step, because the first launch that was done in 2014 of the rooftop solar programming that was done, it didn't meet its targets. So this target is like a booster to push India towards reaching that goal. So It is important. It is an important step.
Okay.
And going forward,
are there any cash benefits that the government has announced for people like you and me who do decide to put up these solar rooftop panels? There were electricity discounts offered back in 2014. Yes. Does this scheme also offer any of those, or there aren't enough details yet?
There aren't enough details yet on the scheme, but it is mentioned that it will run parallel to the scheme of 2014. So likely there would be benefits that will be coming along, because if there are no benefits, then people will not be interested in really picking up schemes like this.
Absolutely. Well, let's just hope that there are enough benefits which egg people on to go ahead and install these very obnoxious looking but environmentally friendly solar rooftop panels on their rooftops, feed it back to the grid and get some cash discount for your own electricity bill. Well, we leave it at that on this edition of Business Plus. Thank you so much for tuning in. World Business Report coming up at 11 a.m. on the other side. Stay with us on News 9.
The circumstances that prevailing today in the subcontinent are very volatile, they're very explosive, they're very dangerous.
Pakistanis, they sent Pakistani armies led by Punjabi generals, whether it was General Tikka Khan or General A.K. Khan Niazi, to oppress Bengalis in Bengal.
I don't think we can shut our eyes to the situation in a neighboring state.
Situation काफी improve हुई है.
There was this whole exploitation of East Pakistan, people of East Pakistan, rather Bengalis of East Pakistan, by West Pakistan. There was an economic exploitation, there was a racial discrimination, there was a cultural subjugation. So it continued for 24 years before things came to a head in 1971.
तमाम हिंदुस्तानियों को तो इस बात का अंदाज़ा तक नहीं था कि बांग्लादेश के इतिहास के कुछ अहम पन्ने हिंदुस्तान की सियाही से लिखे जाएंगे.
Unique story about a unique time, and I think we came of age as a country. We became a country that stood for something.
Cinema imitates life, from real to the real. A story that binds India and Bangladesh from 1971 to now, and for generations to come.
पिप्पा किस दिन काम आएगा अगर हमें ब्रिज के ऊपर से जाना पड़े.
हम रहें या ना रहें, हमारी इस वर्दी का गौरव हमेशा रहेगा.
That is the story of Bangladesh's Victory Day, and how Bollywood in 2023, through Pippa, Sam Bahadur and Mujib, the making of a nation, is rediscovering our shared legacy.
On the 3rd of December, Pakistan attacked India. Indira Gandhi said, now enough. And she went to the radio straight because the parliament was not in session that day. That evening, when the attacks happened, she went to the radio and now she said, it's all out.